Hey there, my name is Fausto Leiva, and 2.5 years ago I quit my corporate job in New York City as a software engineer and went on an adventure. Since then, I've traveled to a few different countries and multiple states in the United States. I was able to do this through mostly these work exchange programs like woofing, world packers, and even a little bit of pet sitting through trusted house sitters. Through my travels, I've encountered many people who ask a very reasonable question. If you had this tech job and you can work remotely, why aren't you traveling, enjoying this fun lifestyle while also working a job to help fund your travels? And the short answer is that I have I've gotten a bad case of jobophobia. I'm scared to go back to work essentially. And so while I won't get into the deep reasons of why that's the case, I will say that I had a pretty bad burnout situation in New York City with my corporate job and the lifestyle that I was living in New York City. And so I've taken a step back from climbing the corporate ladder to exploring interests that I've, had on the back of my mind, but didn't feel I had the ability to go and pursue. And since then, I've learned a lot about working on cars, working with my hands, farm jobs, because I want to have a homestead down the line. And so I'm picking up these abilities that took a backseat when I was in New York. And so not only that, I want to figure out where it is that I want to live and what kind of environment, what kind of things that I want to do, in addition to what it is I want to do for a living. What will fulfill me the most, and I just don't want to jump into a job to for the salary. At this point, I feel like I've explored enough. I've grounded myself sufficiently, and I want to go back towards living a normal life, quote unquote. And so that's what I'm going to try to do because moving around has been awesome, meeting different people, met a lot of lovely folks, and had some really nice experiences. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to have a home base and, not have everything in your car, right, that you need. With that being said, I am still a little nervous about jumping back into a 9 to 5, and based off of my previous experience burning out in New York City, but starting off small, baby steps. So join me on my exploration to finding work that isn't super stressful. So here's the story of how I landed my first job after 2.5 years. Cheers. So when I arrived to Silver City, I had an idea that I would separate my time into two main things. One is helping Larry fix up the trailer, and then two, um, since I had been volunteering on farms quite a while, I grew pretty confident in my abilities to work on a farm. So it only made sense to go out and find a farm job. So fast forward, one of the first things I did was go to the farmers market, walk around, scope the scene, and there was one particular farm that stood out that um, not only looked presentable, nice, it had a wide variety of produce and products, from sourdough bread to yogurt to lettuce, duck eggs, chicken eggs, you name it. For a small town, they had a wide variety of things, of produce, of farm goods. I emailed them asking bluntly if they needed any work, and to my amazement, they could use a extra set of hands. So I emailed them, and I was a little nervous, about expectations and how things were done. You see, part of the appeal from woofing and doing these work exchanges was that there was such a low threshold of commitment, right? Since I was working for free, I felt even more entitled to quit if I didn't like the job or if something didn't pan out right. I wasn't signing any contracts or any obligations, and the responsibilities were fairly low. It was my safety net, better said, you know. But at a certain point, the same net that makes you feel safe and secure can also be the same net that holds you back and limits you from progress and doing better. And I understand that from an outside perspective, this might sound silly or ridiculously simple, oh, you went from working this big job and now you're nervous about working at a farm. But honestly, it sounds silly, but this was my step one into reintroduction into the workforce and also into society, it felt like. So, day one, I went there and I mean, it was pretty clear like, oh, yeah, I can do this farm job. I've been farming on and off for 2 years, just about, probably under. And so it went well. And they even asked me to come back the following day because originally it was just going to be 1 day a week. And so I said, sure, I'll come back. And boy, did my body cuss at me afterwards, because I was not used to this kind of intense work because I hadn't been working on farms for a few months at this point, and then I went full swing into things, and so I was pretty sore afterwards. And so the following night, after working 2 consecutive days, I was really physically tired, but honestly, I still couldn't sleep that well. I was pretty mentally wired, but I was pretty proud of myself, because this was in my grand scheme of things, step one of reintroducing myself into the workforce, and we succeeded. We were no longer ninis, which is a Spanish phrase that I learned from the Spanish gal, which basically means ni trabajas ni estudias. So basically, you don't work nor do you study. So we're flipping the script there. So fast forward a few weeks, I'm working on the farm, and come to find out that I'm not achieving as I'm not getting the same amount of pleasure that I originally was volunteering on these other farms. And so I still enjoyed the physical aspect of it, the the mental meditative medicine that it provides you with, but I realized that I was really taxing my body, especially my lower back. There was a couple days where I was just planting onions and, preparing the beds here and there. But boy, oh boy, my lower back, there was no amount of downward dogs that could have saved my back from feeling like hell. And so I kind of started thinking, like, well, I originally did this for a couple reasons. One, to learn more about homesteading so that one day I could have my own. Two, it was physically beneficial to me because on most of these other farms, I wasn't working more than 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And on this farm, I was working 8 to 9 hours a day, sometimes 2 consecutive days. And so, in the grand scheme of things, not horrible, but it was the nature of the work that I was doing. If I was for half the day planting onions and then doing something else, then it would have been easier. But since it was all lower back, which farming, largely is lower back intensive, then it would have been a bit more pleasant. The other thing is, I just wasn't learning as much on this farm, because it was basically one task for like the whole duration, and so it was simpler for the owners to delegate these tasks out and just have me focus on it. So it makes sense, but it wasn't really serving me. And so, like I said, I knew my days were numbered after a few weeks working on the farm. But the beautiful thing about it is that through this farm, when I went to the farmers market to say hi to the owners, I was able to connect with another lady who owned this small business, where she does landscaping, but in an interesting fashion. She focuses on garden design but with native plants, and I think that's really cool because we're in the desert, and so there's plants that are beautiful and that'll do better on this soil. And yeah, so she specializes on that, installing drip irrigation, adding mulch and making it look beautiful and natural. And she does rock work too. And so I met her, and it was almost like perfect timing because this was already when I decided, all right, I'm gonna start to wean off of this farm and end up quitting because I also asked for a raise on this farm and they denied it. And so I was just like, well, I'm gonna need a little bit more if I'm gonna be pushing my body to this level because I valued myself a little bit more than I think they were valuing me or able to pay me, because it is hard for farms out here. And so part of me understands that and wants to help them out. But at the same time, I'm not that sacrificial to my own well being, right? And so, yeah, after a little bit, I maybe worked at the farm for a full month, right? And so maybe 6 total days spread out amongst 4 weeks, and then I ended up quitting and working with the landscaping company a bit more, and it was a lot more fun. I was getting paid more. I was working with more people, so it was more social, and I even worked with a cute gal, and yeah, the company was better, more vibes, and I was learning more, right? And so I think that was a key point that I realized for myself is that while I do love working with my hands and trying out these different things in my life in the last 2 years, one of the most important parts of that is learning. And so once that well of knowledge runs dry, then I seek more mental stimulation and want to pursue something else. And so the landscaping gig was really cool for that, and I worked with them up until a few days ago actually. And that's simply because I'm traveling to Chicago soon for a friend's wedding. And so I'm back in Santa Fe for a little bit and will think about whether I want to stay in Santa Fe when I come back from my travels or go back to Silver City. So that's still up in the air. So to summarize my last 2 months in Silver City, I got my first job outside of the corporate world, which was farming, and I did something that I've I realized that I've struggled with in the past, and that's quitting. And I'm not talking about, substances. I have pretty good self-control, but I mean more so when I start something like a job or, I'm training for a race, I find it pretty difficult to quit, even if it's not serving me or if it's difficult. And so I I'm glad that I'm able to practice these healthy behaviors, if you will, outside of a more stressful environment. And so um, I was happy that I concluded with quitting this job because, like I said, it wasn't benefiting me in the ways that I was expecting it to. Um, and so it was still fun. Don't regret it one bit. And the beautiful part is that that led me to the landscaping job that I enjoyed a bit more. And so outside of work, the other updates I have is that, well, I ended up not really helping Larry too much with the trailer rehab because, well, other things came up. I helped him with the sewage for a while because, not to expose him too much, but when I arrived, this guy was shitting in buckets, and I'm not exaggerating because his sewage was backed up, and instead of fixing it, he uh, went the easy route, which is harder for me. But anyhow, he's an older guy. He was just shitting in buckets so that he wouldn't have to flush the toilet. And so I went from fixing the trailer to just helping him get his life more livable, if you will, and not living like an Apache warrior. And so I helped him with that. Not only that, his sink was not working. He was doing his dishes in the bathtub. I'm like, Larry, what you doing, brother? What you doing? And so fixed his sink in like 15 minutes. And there's a few other small things that I helped him out with. And so I realized that I wasn't really having enough time to fix up the trailer, and it was going to be a lot of work. So it took the back seat. And one of the reasons why I'm really contemplating not going back to Silver City is that my living accommodations were pretty bad. And after about a month, it started to really wear down on me. And I'm pretty tired of the glamping situation I was on living in because my little container was fine. You know, it did its job, but I didn't have a full kitchen, and so it was in order to cook, in order to shower, I had to go to Larry's house, and it wasn't a big problem initially, but after a while, it started to really, you know, get tiring, and it got old really quickly. And so I, it's one of the reasons I didn't edit any videos since then. It's just I was tired most of the time and just wanted to get my stuff done and just relax. And so, yeah. So, what's next? In the short term, I'm flying out to Chicago tomorrow, where I'll be staying there for 2 weeks and going to a friend's wedding that I'm really excited about, actually. And afterwards, I'm flying to New York for 1 week and revisiting some great friends that I haven't seen in a while. And so I'm really looking forward to that. After which, I'm going back here to Santa Fe, where I'm leaning towards staying here for some time. And yeah, well, that's all I really have planned for now. I foresee myself thinking more deeply about what I want to do if I'm to stay in Santa Fe or go to Chicago. I mean, to Silver City, sorry. And so, yeah, but it's all good. I'm feeling positive. There's been a lot of great people that I met in Silver City, and so I'm left with a positive experience there and a positive outlook on life. And so I I'm optimistic about what's to come, and I like where my brain's at right now. I'm basically still just observing. Do I want to go here, here, or here? And should be good. So stay tuned, and shout out to all my friends that are keeping up with these updates. You know, filming these videos isn't tough, but then editing them can be a little tiring. But I have fun with it. It's just, you know, it can be a little exhausting doing this lifestyle. And so I have to make more time to edit. But not only that, I have to make sure I have enough energy too. So yeah, just thanks for tuning in. It's fun to share, and um, to anyone else that joins in, welcome, and stick along for the ride. I'll be hopefully going more in depth about the last 2.5 years and not just what I'm doing now. You know, what led to my burnout, and hopefully continuing to talk about the fun adventures I'm on and the roads I'm taking. So, all right, thank you. It's getting pretty windy here, so yeah, till next time. Peace.